Minerals Minister Dlamini-Zuma, as you saw, former Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo and MP Mervyn Dirks also voting against the party line and in favour of that report. Interestingly, Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu and former Health Minister Zweli Mkhize were not present in the House. They didn't make their vote, but they were seen in the vicinity. So that's an interesting development as well, that abstention. The Good Party, with leader Patricia de Lille, the Public Works Minister in President Ramaphosa's cabinet, abstained. The party's Brett Heron saying they'd early requested a postponement of the vote until after the court rules on the President's review application, but that suggestion was rejected. So let's get some analysis now from analyst and on-the-spot anchor Lukhona Mnguni. Lukhona, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it because there's so much to talk about. I'm not quite sure where to start, but let's start with Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. When she voted yes in favour of the report, I thought that we would then start to see more people from within the ANC standing up. As it happens, we've got 4 people from the ANC, 5 if you count the MP who got quite confused about her vote and then tried to withdraw it. What does this mean for Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma? Do you think she's likely to be removed from cabinet and disciplined by the party?
Well, Sally, a very good evening and a good evening to our viewers. Nothing in the immediate will come her way. And why is that? The National Conference of the ANC is 3 days away. The current National Executive Committee, including its National Disciplinary Committee and National Disciplinary Committee appeals, will be dissolved effectively over the weekend if that conference gets on with its business on time. And therefore, she might be hedging her bets to say, look, I've seen the top 200 nominated NEC members, and I think that generally they will not so move aggressively against me. Political parties, generally, their disciplinary processes are laden with politics as well. So they are not just purely disciplinary matters. So in the immediate, nothing really happens to her. But of course, I'm sure that a very difficult and tough conversation happens between her, perhaps with the president as well later today or tomorrow. But I mean, a number of those ANC people, I mean, I wrote about this in the Sunday Times on Sunday. A number of those ANC people, they know that this vote to, vote down the independent panel report is irrational. It's irrational to vote. I mean, Ronald Lamula, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services and Constitutional Development, was trying to justify why they are voting this thing down. And I couldn't really piece together the coherence in his argument in terms of convince me, I want to know why you're voting this down. The minute the president took the matter on review, they then decided in the NEC that they would vote it down. But that's no reason, because the president, as Lamula said, I think he was speaking to Aviwe Mtila, saying that, the president did not interdict Parliament from having the debate. Therefore, Parliament's process must be completely separate from the president's review. And it's also constitutionally incorrect for the NEC to dictate to the caucus of the ANC in Parliament. The Constitutional Court was at pains explaining this thing in the August judgment in 2017 on the secret ballot, the matter that was taken to the Court by the UDM. Members of Parliament undertake an oath of office. The NEC is made up of 86 people, top 6 people and 80 additional members. And not all of them are members of Parliament. Therefore, not all members of Parliament of the ANC are members of the NEC. So you can't come to the caucus of the ANC not to debate, but to dictate what it should do. That is unconstitutional. So there are a number of things that we need to solve for in our democracy, Sally. And we can talk about how these have crippled Parliament and its ability to do work. But the long and short of it is that Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and all those other ones, Supra Mahumapelo, Msebenzi Zwane, Thandima Hlala, and Mervyn Dirks. Nothing really happens to them between now and conference, in my mind. They would have to wait and see what the aftermath of conference is. And of course, lastly, your question about why not many people followed suit after Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma had defied the party line. Unfortunately, she's not even on the ballot, so they can't hedge their political stakes on her. Politically, she's weak. If this was 2017 and she had made a move like that, perhaps it would have been a different point altogether, because then she was in the playing field. Currently, she's on the touch line.
Of course, she is hoping to get that 25% support from the floor, but as it stands, as you say, she's not officially been nominated by the branches. Interesting about who wasn't there. We heard, and I think it was Aviwe who told us that he saw, I think it was Lindiwe Sisulu. She was actually in the area, but she didn't go into the assembly to make her vote. Neither did Zweli Mkhize. Do you think that that's not surprising?
Well, the cowardly thing to do when you don't want to commit to something is to be absent. At least Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma was present, and she made her presence to be felt. I mean, the two people flanking her, Pravin Gordhan and Togo Didiza, really struggling to pull together any facial expression responding to what she had just done. And I mean, I think that is standing up for your convictions. You don't, in absentia, you don't let the absence speak for you in your silence. And it's not surprising that they chickened out in that way, because then they are able to cite, whatever reason as to why they were not in the House. But from Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and the other 4 members of Parliament of the ANC, they stood up in front of the nation, they defied. Of course, that might not necessarily buy them favor with the country, but they did what they wanted to do to the best of their convictions and to the best of the configuration of politics within the African National Congress. I think Minister Lindiwe Sisulu has spoken a very big game, a good game, attacked the judiciary, attacked the constitution. But as you would know, Sally, even in those times when the media would call her and say, but hang on, come, let's have a chat about your columns, she would never come. She would allow her spokespeople or her advisors to speak on her behalf. Only now that she wanted to be nominated as part of the ANC presidential race, she availed herself for interviews. So there is quite a bone of cowardice, I think, in those actions of being absent rather than facing up and let people see that you mean what you say.
Do you think that what's happened in Parliament today has actually strengthened the president's hand within the party?
Not at all. Remember that the Integrity Commission report has been deferred to the organizational report to be delivered to conference. And we don't know what the contents of that Integrity Commission report. We spoke about this, Sally, you and I think, last week, Thursday evening. So the point really here is that the fight for the president is not over. This shows him that there are people who have some daggers out. How will they respond, how will they respond to the Integrity Commission report at conference? Last night on Power to Truth with JJ, that panel featuring Prince Mashele and Advocate Dek Kutsie and Tony Yengeni, one of the sentiments that was shared there by Prince Mashele was that, a minority can hold a majority hostage. And it has happened before. Of course, it has happened in this country where minority rules over a majority during apartheid. So there's always a sense where a minority, once it is prepared to fight and go rogue, it can really destabilize things. So we are not so sure, Sally, how soon that plenary that will consider the political report, the organizational report, the treasurer's financial report, and therefore, of course, the question around credentials, how quick it will move. And I still maintain, I said to the guys on the South African Morning that yesterday, that my biggest call would be, if the president is asked to recuse himself when that matter is being discussed of the Integrity Commission report, it will indicate that people are prepared to have a very robust conversation around the Integrity Commission's recommendations on the president. Of course, even Zweli Mkhize, former Minister of Health, his matter on digital vibes will also serve on that organizational report. So here you are, Sally, with 2 presidential candidates who have qualified by way of nomination by branches, but they still both have their fate sealed in an organizational report that we don't have. This is unprecedented that candidates would go to a conference and their fate is still hanging in the balance.
Yeah, it is completely bizarre. I want to ask you a final question about the fact that the NEC's decision was pretty much informed to support the president, was based on the fact that the president has decided to take the Phala Phala report on review, take it to the Constitutional Court because he believes it's flawed. Some suggestions today that that matter is now moot because the parliamentary process is dead in the water. Do you think it's important, though, that that report still move through that review process, bearing in mind that that sets precedents and an understanding of what reports like this need to achieve? God forbid we have to go through this again in our country.
Well, we will go through again this, Sally. If President Ramaphosa is re-elected, I'm certain that opposition will bring this matter back at some point during 2023. Phala Phala is not dead. Phala Phala is not going to die. The fact that there was a theft at Phala Phala and the president is not leveling up with the country is not going to go away. The problem here is not whether or not there's a parliamentary process. The problem here is the conduct of the president and how he has answered for Phala Phala. So the issue here is not whether this matter is dead in the water. It's what the Constitutional Court will say. Constitutional Court might say, look, this report can never be reconsidered again by Parliament. Therefore, you are asking us to embark on an academic exercise, and unfortunately, in terms of court time, we don't have time to do that, and they actually simply close the matter themselves as the Constitutional Court. So there's nothing to do here because, as you've said, Sally, this matter is now dead in the water. If there were to be, it won't be this report. And this was the risk of voting against this report. And one of the questions I asked in the Sunday Times article was, is it possible that this report can come back? And on objective analysis, another motion, substantive motion, would have to be moved, and the speaker would have to rationalize it. And I think those who may want to move that motion will have to wait for either the Public Protector report, the South African Revenue Reserve Bank report, if SARS is going to say anything, and some people were talking about the National Prosecuting Authority. But currently, even for the Constitutional Court, they might find this as a waste of time to embark on an academic exercise because the review really does nothing. And again, as Eusebius Makeza in one platform asked in what he had written, what is under review? And there's still no clear answer to that question.
Yeah. Thank you so much for chatting to us. It is fascinating and convoluted, and we certainly haven't got to the bottom of everything. And we are still exploring all the ramifications.